talking to book people about books and other stuff.
All right, welcome to the next episode of Talking to Book People About Books and Other Stuff, in which I'm going to talk to one of the long-term favorite authors of our shop, an author we've connected with a lot since he wrote this. This is my hardback copy. Nowadays it's a paperback. Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, an absolute masterpiece and a character who just gets you by the heartstrings as he navigates his time in the Iraq War and the aftermath. Or middle math, as you'll sort of see what I mean if you read it. Anyway, Ben lives out in Dallas. He's in the middle of writing something else, and I just wanted to touch base with him and have a chat to him, because to do so is always a great pleasure. So we're going to give him a ring and see what he's been up to. All right, let's give him a call right now. How are you doing? Is everyone safe and well?
Yes, so far.
Good.
My wife and I are here at our house in Dallas,
Yeah,
and we have a nice, spacious yard
great,
and a cabana, and
great.
and so we can get outside,
Yeah,
and we're in the suburbs, so we can go out and run and walk and ride the bike. Um,
great.
and our son lives close by in an apartment. He's
Uh-huh.
fun. Our daughter lives in New York City,
Okay,
in Manhattan.
right.
But she seems to be doing all the things she's supposed to be doing.
Okay,
So anyway, so far we're managing. So, but it's everything is in suspense, in
yeah,
suspension right now,
yeah.
um, and uh, and we really don't know what's going to happen.
And listen, what about you? Were you in the middle of writing at the moment when this happened? And if so, how has that affected you? How has the writing been affected?
Um, yeah, I'm deep into writing a novel set in Haiti,
Okay.
and that's a country I started going to in 1991,
Yeah.
and I have to say that that this has not affected the day-to-day routine of the work.
No.
I mean, I was pretty much in hermit mode anyway,
Yeah.
and this this reinforces
Yeah.
that. I miss my friends,
Yeah.
and certainly miss our daughter,
Yeah.
and we had to forego a trip to New York to see her.
Yeah.
But it's not really a hardship.
No. No.
It's I mean, there is real hardship out there,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
and I'm lucky. I mean, the kind of work I do, it's up to me, and
Yeah.
and I'm just doing what I've been doing all along, and the book itself doesn't feel irrelevant
Right.
to what's
Okay.
going on now. The era I'm writing about in Haiti is in the early 1990s, shortly after, well, I mean, immediately following a coup d'etat, and and so the country was under military rule, and and so the streets were deserted at night. There was a lot of uncertainty and insecurity, and there was also an international embargo
Right.
placed against Haiti to try to, persuade the military regime to step down.
Yeah.
And that embargo went on for 2.5 years,
Right.
and it was really devastating to the Haitian economy and to human health. A lot
Yeah.
of people died, and so what we're going through now seems like, I mean, those two situations are not totally dissimilar.
No.
And um and so I'm writing about Haiti in the early 1990s, but I'm also living here in the United States in 2020,
Yeah.
and one is naturally going to inform the other.
I mean, Haiti is a place that you visited. You say you visited a lot, and I think like three of the stories in Brief Encounters with Che Guevara were set in Haiti. So it's a place you sort of keep being drawn back to, it seems.
Right, yeah, three of the stories are set in Haiti, and then one story is about an American soldier who returns home after um, being in Haiti for a
Yeah.
while, because eventually the United States did invade to restore President Aristide to power.
Yeah.
And so there was a significant American Army presence there. Yeah, so I started going to Haiti in '91 and have continued to travel there ever since.
I was gonna, I couldn't really resist. Bearing in mind your last book was, for the first time, I guess, other than shorter pieces, was one that was a non-fiction one, and that dived right into the current political landscape of the US, and not in an altogether, not in a way that was full of admiration, unsurprisingly, as we talked about before. I just wondered what you thought of how things were going right now in terms of around this crisis specifically, and what you thought would come out of it on the political landscape of the US.
Well, when I titled the book "Beautiful Country Burn Again,"
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know it might be a literal fever that would be the burning.
Yeah.
But I mean, something was going to happen. Some kind of crisis was going to happen during the current president's 4 years in office, and whatever damage had been done to the system, fragility, whatever particular personality or structural flaws we could see in the White House, whatever those were going to be exacerbated.
Yeah.
It's like what doctors call acute on chronic. I mean, you've got a chronic problem, say like lung cancer, and then the patient gets pneumonia too.
Right.
And so that's what we're dealing with right now. The American institutions, the traditions and the structures and that have allowed this kind of democracy to function reasonably well ever since the Civil War in the 1860s. They have been damaged and degraded in the last 40 years like never before in modern American history. And so then you get a situation like this with a current president like this, and you're going to get a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the nicest way to put it.
Yeah.
And so you can see Trump struggling. He might be figuring out that this is a problem I can't talk away or PR my way out of. And so what do I do now? Because so much of his career has been built on PR and advertising and puff and bluff. And but I mean, sooner or later, reality is stronger than any of us. And there is no more striking or final reality than death.
Absolutely.
And I mean, many numbers of the people who have always supported him will continue to support him up until a point, and there's going to be a tipping point. I hope we don't come to that.
No.
But there will be a critical mass of damage and death in this country potentially that will turn the country against him ultimately. But how much damage, we're going to have to endure to get to that point, how much can be repaired or not repaired remains to be seen. But this may well be the existential crisis for the United States that I was anticipating in Beautiful Country Burn Again.
Yeah.
And I mean, America has had two existential crises before. The first was the Civil War, which resulted in emancipation. The second was the Great Depression, which resulted in the New Deal. And both of those were profound restructurings of American society. And I felt like when I was writing those pieces for The Guardian in 2016, and then as I was working on the book in 2016 to 2018, that we're on the cusp of another existential crisis, simply because the structures of government and society, are so stressed. And but who knew what that crisis was going to be? Well, this may be it.
Yeah. Or it's the vehicle anyway, isn't it? It's it's the thing that leads you to that point. And it's very interesting. I spent quite a lot of time talking to three who've become very close friends, American booksellers. One in New York, Brooklyn and New Jersey, one in Maine in a small town, and one in Athens, Georgia. And talking to them through this crisis, we sort of message each other, video message each other, has been absolutely fascinating. And my friend who in Athens, Georgia in particular, has been absolutely clear that she really doesn't feel, as a small business owner and as somebody who's concerned for the health of her customers and her community, that she can rely on the federal level support in any way whatsoever. She feels that it's what comes out of Trump's mouth and also just what comes out of the administration in terms of support. It's utterly unpredictable. It may sound good occasionally, but then some future layer will reveal how the shortcomings of it. But so for her, everything is about the local. It's the positive element is she can sort of rely a little bit on her mayor. So when they did the lockdown, the mayor kind of was the one who clarified what they could and couldn't do and what was safe. And she can rely on her fellow business owners not to open up yet, even though, it's been said that they can. I don't know if that's a sort of if you think that's the case where you are and in other parts of America, whether there is some sort of hope at a local level, depending on who's in control, and that others just sort of almost, have given up hope at a federal level.
Well, I think her perception of what's going on at the federal level is certainly my perception. From time to time, you do hear encouraging signals from the current president. And, people like Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx, they seem like, reasonable professional people, but it's all, the actual results on the ground are all over the place. And, a federal official over the weekend she pointed out the shortcomings of, getting testing kits out in the numbers they should be going out, and so Trump fired her on Monday.
Right. Yeah.
She was just speaking the truth. So yeah, and I really, given recent history, you cannot count on that situation getting any better.
No.
And so yes, it's very much going to be at the state and local levels. And here in Dallas County, we have a good county judge. And that's basically the executive officer for the county.
Right.
And he's been very proactive, and seems like he's very well informed about things that are going on. He imposed a stay-at-home order before the governor did, but the governor has put forth his own agenda and said that state trumps local. And so to the extent that local restrictions are more severe than statewide, then statewide rules apply.
Right.
And
I think that happened in Georgia too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but really the only entity that has the resources to really help people out financially. We're talking about millions of small businesses across the country. The states can't do it.
No.
It has to be the federal level. And so it's almost as if all these small business owners are living, in the hope that their very rich uncle, who's extremely capricious and erratic, will one day decide, oh, yes, I think I will divert sufficient money their way to get them through this.
Yeah.
But this particular president, you can't count on anything.
No. And yeah, exactly. And just, the things that are said one day seem to be unsaid another day, or are just completely, made up on the spot. but yeah. And are way too optimistic often. You know, when you think of those small businesses near you, and you think of the time and space when this has passed, or the bulk of this has passed, and life is returning to something approaching normality. Tell me about a couple of the places you would want to go to first.
Well, let's see. The bookstore.
Of course.
Um, we have a very fun independent bookstore in this part of Dallas named Interrobang Books,
Uh-huh.
and they opened up 2.5 years ago. They are wonderful.
Cool.
Their original location was destroyed by the tornado that came through Dallas in October.
Right.
I mean, completely destroyed. So they relocated a little bit south,
Yeah.
and then COVID came along.
Wow.
And they are opening up 25%.
Okay.
Over this weekend, they opened the doors. They said, we'll allow a certain number of people in.
Yeah.
We'll also do curbside service.
Okay.
I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
There are two other very fun bookstores in Dallas, and both smaller.
Yeah.
And I think one will be okay. One I'm not so sure about.
Mm.
So I think, my local bookstore, I think is going to be okay. But then I think about up at the corner, the flower shop I go to.
Right.
When I need to get flowers. It's
Yeah.
A young woman. It's her own business. Every time I walk in, I say, "How are you doing?" And she says, "I'm living the dream."
Yeah.
She always wanted to have her own flower shop.
Yeah.
And then 2 doors down is the laundry. The dry cleaners I go to. It's a mom and pop shop.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that's going to look like. I mean, the big, like Lowe's, which is a huge home improvement store with a million locations across the U.S., that's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But all these millions of small businesses across the country, which are really the lifeblood of communities, I very much worry about them.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you managed to read through this?
Oh, I mean, reading is food.
Yeah.
And I think about books. There are lots of books in my head that give me a great deal of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not as if you have to read them to get that comfort.
Okay.
You can think about them. You carry them around with you. And they, to me, they're a very real source of, pleasure and solace, and also a way to calm myself down.
Yeah.
And so I tend to be thinking about the big novels that sweep you away, where you just disappear into that world for 2 or 3 weeks. And, like Larry McMurtry's novel, Lonesome Dove.
Right. Yeah.
And Mark Helprin's wonderful novel, A Soldier of the Great War.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And Madison Smart Bell's trilogy about the Haitian Revolution.
Right.
And so I don't have to go and take them off the shelf for them to have this positive effect on me.
Yeah.
They're in my head. And so I just take them, I pick that book off the library in my head and think about it for a while.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's why that's the way books stay with you long after you've read them, which we talk about, all the time when we're talking to customers about books, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
But and of course, Lynn's Long Half-Time Walk is where we first sort of encountered your writing, and the connection between you and our shop started. And I kind of was wondering what you thought Billy and his mates would make of this whole situation, and how they would cope with it, and whether I feel that some of his troop would not handle these restrictions too well. Maybe Billy would be philosophical about it, but I'm not sure about some of the others. What do you think?
Americans are a restless group, generally speaking. And also, generally speaking, Americans are stubborn, and we like to think of ourselves as stubborn and independent.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to tell us what to do. I mean, the reality is is more complex and nuanced than that. But
Yeah.
I think that's the way a lot of us like to think of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so it's very alien to ask a critical mass of Americans to stay at home.
Yeah.
And also we're a very kinetic society. Like there's a lot of movement,
Yeah.
a lot of action, and it may be just action on the screen, but so I think a bunch of Billy's buddies, they're probably watching a lot of TV.
Yeah.
And frankly, and streaming a lot.
Yeah.
I expect Billy, if he made it through the war, I expect he's okay. It seemed to me he was building the resources to get along in life.
Yeah.
He was in the process of doing that. And I have to say, American society does not give its young people a lot of resources in that regard.
Right.
If you're going to, put together the emotional and intellectual equipment to get through life, you have to be lucky and come across a few mentors,
Yeah.
or do it yourself, because mainstream culture is pretty cheap, and there's not much nutritional value in it. So that's an interesting question. I haven't thought about it, but I expect, at this point, the old Bravos, they're getting pretty restless and antsy.
Yeah.
And they're probably calling each other up or Zooming and saying, "Oh, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm ready to get out. I'm ready to go, erase some hell or drink some beer." But we Americans, we need to learn how to occupy ourselves.
Right.
And by that I mean not resort to the screen, but how to be with ourselves, how to be quiet. That's going to have to be a learned skill in America.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's exclusive. I think we've got a sort of, well, like a lot of American traits, I suppose, we've got a similar version, maybe a little bit less far down the track, but going on here, the sort of domination of screens and the over cluttering of life, the breakneck speed that you operate at in life is really been sort of cast into sharp focus by this.
It's I think we feel like we always have to be doing something productive.
Yeah.
And by productive, it's generating noise and sound and color.
Yeah.
And money, and I think there are different ways to be.
Yeah.
And there are different times for being different ways. And this is one of these times where most of us can best serve ourselves and our families and our communities by being quiet at home.
Yeah.
And that's unusual for people in this society.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, listen, I'm going to let you go and get on with your day and restart your computer for what I hope is the last time today, and hope that Zoom hasn't caused any long-term problems.
I doubt it. But listen, thank you so much for reaching out and for the conversation. And please give everybody my love. When I'm done with this book, we're going to go live here for a while, there for a while, like a month or 6 weeks at a time. And
Great.
Bath is very high on the list.
Well,
it just strikes us as a really congenial place, and the countryside is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And also there's Mr. B's, and there's the wonderful beer and books you can get at Mr. B's. So, maybe before too long, you'll have me as a neighbor for a while.
Well, that would be great. You should definitely do it, and let me know if you start planning that, because we can connect you up with some good places to stay.
Oh, great! Thank you, Nick.
Great. And you. Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Please note, no book people were harmed in the making of this film, though some were technologically challenged. All books are available from www.mrbeesemporium.com.